Largely speaking, any piece of content that you put out there can either bring you clients, establish trust, generate leads, or entertain. So whatever you post, wherever you do it, whether it's a newsletter, a blog post, a YouTube video, even a social media post, it has to have one of these goals.
Welcome to Marketing by Design, where you and I learned from our favorite founders and marketers on how they built their success and told their stories by design. I am your host, Andy Milligan. Let's get started. What's happening, people, and welcome back to another powerful episode of Marketing by Design. This week, you and I are learning from the one and only Adriana Tica. If you've spent any measurable amount of time on LinkedIn, you've probably seen who Adriana is. Aside from being the one who's taught me more about content than anyone else I know, she has an incredible marketing career, and she's going to bring a lot of that expertise to this very conversation. When I think of what a thought leader actually is in terms of content, there's a lot of people who portray themselves to be such, but Adriana is just on a different level. Every week, she's posting a newsletter, and she offers so much clarity of how all the pieces of a marketing and content engine actually work together. Having a trusted voice like hers who has seen as much as she has is not something that I'm taking lightly. So in this chat, you're going to learn how to earn trust from your content, how to make sure that everything that you're putting out there actually has a job and is working together. And if you stick around till the very end, you're going to hear what's been the biggest needle mover for her in her own content business. And a little hint for you, it's not AI. I am so excited and proud to share this conversation with you. So that's enough from me. Let's get straight into this episode of Adriana and episode 128 of Marketing by Design. But before we do, I have a resource to share just with you. The highest converting website's visual swipe file in Notion is something that I've put together across 3 years of designing high converting sales pages and websites. It's a visual swipe file in Notion where you can tab by color, CTA, industry, and all the important parts of a website. So if you're approaching a redesign or you just want some inspiration for our sites, these are the sections that we're using on our own clients that have already been proven and allow you to start 2 steps ahead. I encourage you to take me up on that. That'll be in the first link below, as will all of Adriana's information. A huge thank you for Adriana for coming on the show. And without further ado, this is Adriana Tica by Design.
I built all of my brands through content. Most of the people who ever bought anything from me or went on a discovery call with me started by reading my content. I studied communication and PR in college, and I have a master's degree in communication and PR, which I got because I wanted to become a master manipulator. And then I did a 180 and pivoted to the other side where I teach people how to do this without being manipulative.
Nice. If you had to pick like what your favorite thing to do during the day is, because I mean, that's kind of goes back to the generalist conversation of doing all these different aspects of fulfillment marketing. If you had to pick like where you'd say your sweet spot is, my guess would be probably the writing and newsletter side, just knowing your content a little bit. But if you could say what do you thrive the most in when it comes to, like a specific marketing deliverable?
It's either writing or strategy. Like the writing itself, is not necessarily my favorite thing. I like the ideation part, the editorial calendar behind it, pretty much the strategy behind it. But I think what lights me up the most is building a strategy either for myself or for my clients and geeking out on various aspects, choosing the tactics, choosing the channels, and so on.
What do you think when you're working with clients? What is like one of the biggest misconceptions in terms of organization? Because when you say like the strategic part of it, I think a lot of people, especially if you have maybe the vision and inkling to like, I want to do this thing full time, or I want to build a business one day, and maybe they are in a full-time role. What can you say is the difference between people who are strategic about it versus people who are just posting? What are the things that they should get started doing to have more of an, should they like establish their content pillars? Is there anything that you can recommend, or what are you telling your clients when you actually start to say, okay, we have a goal. Now this is how the content is going to help us get there.
It's exactly what you said. I start by advising my clients not to publish anything if they don't have a goal for it. Largely speaking, any piece of content that you put out there can either bring you clients, establish trust, generate leads, or entertain. So
Mhm.
whatever you post, wherever you do it, whether it's a newsletter, a blog post, a YouTube video, even a social media post, it has to have one of these goals. You don't have to be constantly selling, of course, because that's exhausting for both you and your audience. You don't have to always peddle informational and educational content because, again, that's exhausting. You can also entertain, create stuff that's relatable, that generates a certain connection between you and your audience. But you do have to have a goal for everything you post. And behind each of these micro goals, if you will, for every piece of your content, um, you have to have a straight line to your overarching business goals.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if my goal with a newsletter is to generate 3 more leads, why do I need 3 more leads right now? Because, well, I did the math and I know that this quarter I need 50 leads to meet my sales targets or something similar.
Mhm.
Because
How Yeah, go
otherwise
ahead.
it's super easy to get shiny object syndrome, to jump from trend to trend, from growth hack to growth hack, and at the end of the day you'll have a ton of content, a ton of marketing assets, but really no results.
Yeah. I think a big part of it too is kind of the mindset you bring to it. You hit on a little bit, but like you set a and I fall into this trap a lot too, especially on LinkedIn, is I kind of fall into the deadline slash fulfillment mindset versus the goal behind the content mindset. So your goal becomes to do the thing rather than to get the results of doing the thing, if that makes sense. I think a lot of people fall into that because you
Yeah.
see the people that probably get the best results with it. You're like, man, you just all you see is like that gap between like they're doing so much more volume, their quality is so much more. And I think the human inclination is like I have to kind of speed run that by getting the reps in, and then you make the North Star kind of the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So is your advice ever to kind of dial back? I know you kind of said it in the beginning there, but is your advice ever to dial back and say like really find your voice and get clear on the goals maybe before increasing volume?
It depends. It really depends on the kind of person you are. Some people find their voice and find their goals by writing more, by publishing more. And when they analyze the results, they can zero in on what's working for their business and what's not. Um, at the other end of the spectrum, there are the people who need to have clear goals and they need to dial back before really jumping in. So it really depends on what's working for you. My preference is for at least having some inkling of a goal. You don't necessarily have to have the full strategy, 50-page PDF or anything like that. But just know what your micro goal is, if you will, with every piece of content. Even if your goal for the day is to test something to see if a certain framework resonates with your audience or not.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think that will always beat publishing just for the sake of consistency. I know a lot of LinkedIn gurus lead with this advice: just be consistent, show up every day, comment 50 times a day, but consistent garbage is still garbage.
Yeah, I think that's a good clarification because my experience, and I think a lot of people's experience, especially on LinkedIn, is like you have to sort of show up and like put your effort in, even on the non-content side of things. And I think where the real leverage comes from is when your content can do the sales for you. That's what creates sort of the buy-in from other people is what creates the community around just sharing your journey and doing what you do. Um, my um, my biggest thing, especially when it comes to posting on LinkedIn, is that I am in kind of that like fulfillment mindset, and I'm not strategically thinking like, what would the next step be? Like, what's the next step in my funnel from this post to either off-platform one-on-one DM? And I want to ask you, like, when in your own business, what have you seen to be the most effective in terms? What can you say like as a whole in terms of using LinkedIn as a platform? Does the success come from not just content, but like the other aspects of engaging, commenting, like you said, one-on-one DMs, and then sort of the sales strategic side of it versus the content in itself? What can you tell me about the role those two play in order to get success from a platform like LinkedIn?
To me, it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle with multiple elements. So,
Okay.
great content is an excellent first pillar. But if you don't spend a bit of time on the platform, you won't get to really meet people. So you pretty much need everything. You need to engage with other people's content. You need to at least answer DMs. If you just post and ghost, you won't get too far. Of course, it depends on who you are. You've seen that there are a lot of stars, even soccer players and athletes in general, who have now joined LinkedIn. I estimate that Serena Williams probably doesn't spend a lot of time in the DMs and trying to connect with
Hmm.
people, but that's a very, very different game. So I think that as if you're just getting started, in particular, you will need to put in more effort than later on, and it goes for pretty much any platform. If you already have a personal brand and name that people know, it's much easier to get started and form relationships. In the
Yeah.
beginning, when no one knows you, you kind of need the elbow grease.
Yeah, I think it's well, I mean, even the elbow grease part of it, that's what leads to the outsized results. It's what makes it fun, you know? And honestly, as I've done it for like I've posted every day for almost 2 years now, and I don't look forward to the post going live every day. Like I look forward to like actually like seeing what the people that I follow and engage with, kind of my unstructured pod, if you will, like the 9 or 10 people that I go in and comment on every day. Like I actually look forward to seeing what they put out for the day. I'm not really excited about like, oh, I spent a ton of time on this video or this piece of content. A lot of times for me, I think for a lot of people, it's kind of scheduled beforehand. And then you're kind of just like, okay, that's what's going out for the day. Make sure I'm commenting around this time, etc. But we're kind of deviating from your strong suit, which is the content side. But tell me, like, when you're working with clients, what have you seen? I kind of view you as finger on the pulse of, okay, what's working, especially I think people who work one on one in a strategic role with clients really have to know what's working. Um, so what can you say about, and it can be kind of platform agnostic, and this could kind of feed into the platform question too. Like, what do you see that's working the best for you, your clients, in terms of content, creating visibility that actually leads to, their goals, their sales metrics, etc.
It's something that's been working for a while. It's not necessarily a new thing. That's long form content. And it's usually the type of content that you don't create on social media, maybe YouTube, but social media is a crisscross, but YouTube is a crisscross between social media and search platform. But if you can move people away from traditional social media and onto a platform that you control and where you create long form content, then you know that you can retain their attention. Like you get their attention on social media, and then you use a long form content platform that you control to retain that attention and eventually to convert it into sales. If I look at my own financial reports, I see that even if someone bought something from me off a social media post, they are already on my email list. And I recently got a ton of replies to a newsletter issue from people who told me, because I wrote about trust, from people who told me that I bought from you because I started trusting you after reading your emails. It's very easy to fake expertise and knowledgeability and relatability in on social media. It's much harder to do so in long form content, which is why people
Mm,
need to see that before they decide that, yes, I trust this person. And by
yeah,
trust, I mean both aspects. Like, I trust you not to dupe me, that I trust you that what you promise is going to get delivered, but also I trust that you are the expert who can guide me. They're two
mm,
different aspects, to trust, at least in
y-
what we do, in the kind of businesses we run.
yeah, exactly. Especially, I think at the end of the day, and I keep saying this with a lot of the conversations I'm having, is that people work with who they feel like they already know, And the fastest way to do that is, there's no fast way to do it, obviously. But the one to one is saying, okay, you've spent like, and Jay talks about this too, is like, how many minutes is this person spending with me? And that's kind of the most accurate way to judge them, even in a metaphorical sales funnel. Is like, okay, whether it's they're watching my long form video or they're reading my newsletter, checking to see who opens, if they reach, what links are they clicking, etc. I think I know that that's the depth that you build with an audience is especially for lean, solo, smaller businesses, consultants. that's just the North Star is how deep are you getting with the people that you need? Because especially when you're small, like there's the difference between being overbooked and being in a dry spell in terms of your own business is literally two or three conversations, especially when you're B2B. Um, so I've seen it too many times again. That's why being consistent on the content side and making sure that you're aligned with those goals is really important because like I said, the one more conversion can make a huge difference in your life, your business, and your outlook on it, the positivity of how everything's going.
Okay, for
So
sure.
can you talk to me about I like newsletters and I want you, Adriana, I want you to someone's getting ready to start a newsletter, hypothetical. Say I'm a marketer, I'm in a full-time job and I want to eventually be aspirational to do this. Sound familiar? And a consultant or have my own business. Level set my expectations in terms of how long it's going to take to get meaningful traction and results. Given the hypotheticals that I already have good content, I'm an expert at what I do. What are some of the things that I should come into it knowing, saying, okay, I know this is a long term play. You can't speed run trust. What are some of the things that you tell your clients to kind of level set their expectations in terms of how long things might take with long form like newsletters?
Well, it usually takes at least twice as long as we expect. Now, how long it's going to take a particular person depends a lot on the network they have. They may be starting from scratch or have one subscriber, which is usually their email address.
Yeah.
But if they already have a large network where they can do cross promos with partners, they can definitely speed up the growth of the newsletter. If they already have a social media audience who enjoys their content and they pop in one day and say, hey, if you enjoy what you're reading here, you're going to love my newsletter that just launched, this is going to speed up things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there are two big entry-level milestones that you can use to sort of test out your newsletter and see if it has legs. The first 100 subscribers and the first 1,000 subscribers. After you have your first 1,000 subscribers, it becomes much, much easier to gather data, to figure out what products you should build for those people, and also to generate sales.
Mm-hmm. But talk to me about your own experience doing that because you're like, I go to your site, and which all the listeners should do, and you'll see like the newsletter is one of the first things that you're promoting, even before your paid offers, even before the growth intensive, even before your one-on-one consulting. Talk to me a little bit about. I know you kind of hit on like, okay, you realize you're aware in terms of how your audience comes in, building that level of trust. But talk to me about the role the newsletter plays in your own business because I think you're a case study just for success of like, what do you have, 4,000 subscribers now, something like that.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
know.
about
I want to know how long that's taken you to build, and the role that it currently plays in your business right now. Can you talk to me a little about that?
Yeah. So, it's taken me about 2 years and a half to get there. I also unsubscribed a bunch of people. There should be probably almost double that, but I chose to keep a cleaner list and make sure that people who don't engage with the newsletter don't get spammed.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a few automations set in the background that check for inactive subscribers and unsubscribes them if they no longer want to stay on the list.
Huh.
Um, as for the role it plays, I would say it's the nexus of my business. Everything revolves around it. It's the non-negotiable of the week. Sometimes life gets in the way. We get busy. I may get sidetracked with client projects, but I never get busy enough to not send my newsletter. I started it in late 2022. I haven't missed a single issue since then.
Nice.
Um, and whatever happens, the newsletter is the priority of the week. I make sure the newsletter happens, come what may, because I know it's my biggest trust generator. It's what generates the most sales. It's what got me partnerships, earned media, everything. So everything gets centered around it. Even if I have, say, a new product to launch or a new offer, I make sure that that is reflected in my content calendar. For instance, if I want
Mm-hmm.
to launch something in, say, October, I come August, I should start hinting at that thing or writing about that thing in my newsletter, which means that all my product launches affect my editorial calendar and vice versa. So
Uh-huh.
pretty much nothing I write is haphazard.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me. Okay, so now you've got me waiting. On. Talk to me about you referenced the editorial calendar a little bit, and I picture you as like okay, master strategist, like cooking up in the lab. You have the calendar. It's like okay, you're like strategic. You're balancing all these things. The newsletter is in the middle, but you're tying it to all your other offers and time bound things that where it fits in the funnel relationship to your audience, automations, ConvertKit. Like, talk to me about what it looks like when you are drafting your content. What does this editorial calendar look like? Is it a whiteboard where you're just like, okay, this is going out, this is the newsletter, and then you're kind of like drawing lines to, okay, this is the offer that it feeds to, this is the date on the calendar. What is it? I know that's probably way off, but like that's the envision picture I get. But talk to me about your creation process and your editorial calendar and how you create that organization.
Okay, so I don't have a whiteboard, although it would probably be
Man.
useful. So thanks for that idea.
Oh.
But this is something that I usually teach my clients. Every newsletter has to be founded on something that I like to call a big idea. A big idea is usually a contrarian take, something that you do differently from your peers. For me, it's just doing marketing without bro hacks and without manipulative crap. So,
Mhm,
marketing, especially for my audience, also means generating influence and trust. From this big idea, it gets easier for me to derive my content pillars, if you will.
mhm,
What do you need to sell through your marketing without being sleazy? Well, you need an audience. So I'm going to talk about audience growth. You need to create content. So I'm going to talk about content in every possible shape or form, whether it's for social media or off social media. You need to monetize. So I'm going to talk about how do you build your offers, how you price them, and so on. And yeah, broadly speaking, these are my content pillars. So every week I
mhm,
know that I need to write something that fits into these buckets. Another litmus test that I use, and perhaps the most important, is whether the topic that I choose or that the reader suggests is helpful to my audience. This is the one test that every newsletter idea has to pass. If it's something too vague, too out there, something I don't have enough data to back up, it doesn't get written. And lastly, as I mentioned in the beginning, I need to be able to tie it to a goal. So if I talk about pricing at the end of the newsletter, I may say, hey, if you need help pricing your offers, you can book a one-on-one session with me and we'll geek out on pricing together. Or if I write about newsletters, I might pitch my newsletter masterclass at the end of the newsletter. So these are the conditions that every newsletter topic has to meet. Um, and that's pretty much the editorial process, if you will. I
mhm.
collect topic ideas from my readers. I ask them to tell me what they're struggling with, so I can write about it. Um, and yeah,
Mhm.
each of these ideas gets tested for all the things that I mentioned. Does it help my larger audience? Can I tie it back to a business goal of mine? Does it align with my brand ethos? And so on.
Yeah, that's really good. You explained that really well because I know it's a really um, broad topic. But yeah, you tied it back really well to like, okay, this is succinctly the process and how it kind of checks all those boxes. Talk to me. I want to get tactical a little bit. So, what do you use tool wise to sort of make this whole marketing thing less overwhelming, especially from our perspective as like leaner, smaller businesses, consultant sort of business model. What's the tool stack that you're passionate about and that you would recommend and can vouch for?
Mm. I'm pretty scrappy about tools actually, because I know, especially when you connect a ton of them, uh, things break far more easily. So I
Right.
try not to rely on a ton of platforms. I use Git for my newsletter, and I can definitely vouch for the platform, especially for people who are either solo founders or creators or anything in between. They also have a commerce platform, a recommendations engine, so you can sell stuff via Kit, you can grow your audience via Kit. Um, I use Google Docs, obviously, for editing. I use AI to Well, to pick fights with it, really, I ask it to check if my drafts align with my brand ethos, and also to find holes in my arguments, and to make sure that they are well rounded. Because we can all fall in love with our own ideas a bit too much, and then
Uh-huh.
we get blind to our own fallacy and to our own faulty arguments. So these days, after I write something, I ask ChatGPT to name a few exceptions, use cases where this may not apply, limitations, and so on.
Uh-huh.
And what I like to do is get the most mileage of every piece of content that I publish. So everything that I publish as a newsletter gets turned into a blog post, and from there it gets syndicated on Medium. And if you will, you can imagine this as a flywheel, because each of these steps allows me to grow my audience. While I don't invest in SEO per se, some of my past newsletter issues rank in search engines, which gets me discovered, so I can get more subscribers. And what I publish on Medium is super low lift, just a simple copy paste job, and it also helps me grow my audience and pretty much
Uh-huh.
tap into Medium's audience.
Did you have so I want to talk about if you had like an inflection point in terms of because a lot of people have like whether it's a viral video or a newsletter that's just like, wow, like this is where I really understand my audience. I had that happen kind of recently for me too, and I see it in a lot of other creators, but I want to talk to you mostly about like collaboration and like partnerships. I know, and I heard you on Brian's episode. You talk a lot about collaborating. You have like a community spotlight. What can you say in terms of just bringing other people along on the journey with you, in terms of what that does for your own business and how you would recommend other people maybe get started by having these collaborations, whether it's through their newsletter or they host interviews, etc. I'm obviously very biased because I love just sharing
Mhm.
a conversation with someone and sharing those lessons with other people. And it's done wonders for my business. But just talk to me about like collaboration, how you view that as a role in everything that you do.
I'm very bullish on collaborations, because even though they don't necessarily generate a lot of quantity, they generate a lot of quality, because they essentially act as referrals.
Uh-huh.
If someone says, "Hey, I trust this person, you should read what they publish," their audience automatically uh, meets you, and when they do, they already trust you a little bit. You don't start from scratch with them. I like to do these barter deals, cross promos, if you will, with peers, where we promote each other's either lead magnets, free resources, or simply the newsletter, a YouTube channel, or something similar. And on occasion, especially since my list has grown, I like to pay it back. And if I find a very good resource, I ask for permission from the owner. Hey, can I share this with my list? It costs you absolutely nothing. I just think my audience would love this resource.
Uh,
And I usually do this for people who offer services that are complementary to mine. For instance, I wanted to shed some light on a friend of mine who has a YouTube centered business. I don't do YouTube consultancy, but
uh-huh.
her lead magnet, her PDF, was extremely valuable for my readers who are also
Uh-huh.
interested in YouTube.
Yeah, talk to me about I know I keep saying that, but I'm scratching my own itch in terms of curiosity. Talk to me about getting to know your audience better. Say in your own newsletter, for a bit of context, I've had a newsletter I've been really consistent for it for about 3 months, and it's just once a week, goes out Sunday. And I was on a call with a friend, and we were just like looking through the statistics, which I hadn't, don't curse me for this, but I hadn't looked at the newsletter open statistics or anything like that. So I kind of had no idea what was going on. Um, and the way I did that is you talk about repurposing. Some of this I learned from you was literally taking my best performing LinkedIn post during the week, the one that generated the most engagement conversations, the one I was like, okay, I feel like this one kind of connected the best, and expanding that into a newsletter, going a little bit deeper, which I think is a really good place for me, especially was approaching email like a black box. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That was a really good place to get started. Can you talk to me about um, if someone is getting started with a newsletter, how do you identify your audience? Is it Also tell me, like, when you send out a newsletter, how do you judge like success, pass, fail? Like going in and looking at the stats, is it by judging replies and the conversation it generates, or is it direct conversion? Say, I read Adriana's newsletter about her offer, and then I booked a call right afterwards. How do you kind of judge a pass, fail, knowing your audience? What does success look like?
Mm. Well, it depends on the primary goal of the newsletter. I generally don't do hard sales in the newsletter. It's just a soft pitch at the end, something that doesn't harm the reader's experience. If you get to the soft pitch, you can simply ignore it. You've already gotten all the value from it.
Uh,
But if my goal is to generate conversions, then I probably move the pitch higher up, maybe mention the product or the service a couple times, and then I would definitely judge the success or the failure by the amount of conversions it generated. The
mhm,
amount of unsubscribes is also a very good signal, because if a ton of people unsubscribe, then you've probably done something wrong, or you sent email on a bad day. Maybe it was a national holiday where most of your subscribers are. Uh,
mhm,
Generally speaking, however, I would say that these days I try to look past open rates because they're unreliable, but click rates are slightly more reliable, and so are replies. I like to encourage replies and spark conversations with my audience, because this is where I get my best insights. If I write about a common struggle that my audience has, and I get a few replies, then I can go deeper in that conversation and understand the true nature of the struggle, because, for instance, someone struggles to grow their audience, but this can mean a ton of things. It can be social media, off social media, newsletter, YouTube, many things. Or it can happen because people struggle with being consistent. They struggle with ideation. They struggle with content quality, and so on. Candidly, this is where most of my ideas for new products and services come from these
mhm,
conversations that I have with my subscribers, and then they tell me what that throbbing, nagging pain is for them.
mhm. Yeah, and I think something that you and Jay, honestly, both do really well is this. A lot of people kind of don't make a distinction between audience and client base or leads. I think there's two different perspectives that you can kind of take on it. Is like, these people are my friends, and I'm generally kind of learning with them and just kind of ideally being a couple steps ahead and saying, okay, here's what helps me. If you want me to expand on this and kind of contextualize it to your unique use case, that form of sales is so much easier, especially as someone who kind of falls apart in the face of viewing anything in my business as sales. Um, that's where, I feel like I'm kind of in my sweet spot. It's like, okay, this is someone that, and I know this is more B2B specific, but this is someone that I've known for a while. I feel like I'm genuinely adding value to them through these repeat engagements that I've had, these repeat meetings, exposure that we've had with each other's businesses. And yeah, that's why I'm really bullish on, everything that you talk about in terms of, you know, the non-scammy strategies, being in it for the long term and just setting expectations is like this, it takes time. But if you do it right, you have the North Stars aligned and you're intentional with it, you get some pretty incredible results. So I think part of it too is that it takes me um like asking the questions and hearing the reminders from someone who is an expert to like actually stay the course sometimes. So um thank you. You've been that for me today. But
My pleasure. That's my mission,
yeah,
after all.
absolutely. But I want to talk more kind of, peel back the curtains a little bit of you as a person. So what is just to add some context to the business and everything, what are some things that have you excited in terms of just your business as a whole, life? What role does a business play in your life in terms of reaching your bigger picture goals? And what gets you excited to get out of bed today and or every day and go to work?
I'm lucky. And I really don't want to ignore my privilege because I get to live life pretty much on my own terms. I'm not going to sell you that crap that I can work 10 minutes a day and make $10,000 a day by working 10 minutes. That's not happening. I don't think that's real for anyone.
Mhm.
But I can work from anywhere I want. So you'll often find me working from usually somewhere near the Mediterranean. I go and spend a month in near the sea and I work from there, which is something I absolutely love. And I'm also very lucky in terms of being able to choose my clients, being very selective about whom I work with. I am well past that stage where I need to work with just anyone just to make
Mhm.
ends meet. I've been there in the beginning when I first launched my agency. I wrote a lot of crap and a lot of content that I'm not proud of. And I wrote it for extremely lousy pays. I am now past that stage, and it's honestly been, I think, the biggest up level. At least in terms of what I'm aware of, being able to
Mhm.
say no, being able to say, "Hey, I'm not a consultant for you. I can recommend someone else if you want to, but I cannot help you." Or I will
Mhm.
not help you because I believe that what you're doing is crap and I will not support you to make that more popular, is a privilege that I do not take lightly. And because you asked me
Mhm.
what excites me the most,
Mhm.
um, I haven't set out to change the world or bring world peace. Not that those are noble goals, but I I understand my reach and what I can do.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm excited because I get to work on projects that I'm invested in, and I get to do it on my own terms in a way that aligns with my values.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's kind of sticky about your content is that, like, you're super soft spoken, and then you're just like at the same time you're like, oh, if I don't like you, I'm not gonna mess with you at all. um,
No.
I think it's a really good mindset to have, and I think a lot of people that kind of start, and you kind of mentioned where you're creating from a sense of you have an incentive, like I need to grow my business, I need to meet these boxes. That's why I'm trying to get better at like assessing the intents behind people sometimes and not jumping to conclusions. Is like, and maybe sometimes, and you see it a lot, especially on LinkedIn, where people come from they're having to fill their own bucket rather than using the content as a means to help other people. And it's always good to be self aware of that. And especially like when I first started too, it was very much like, okay, LinkedIn is a marketing strategy for me. But then you eventually kind of, and I even said it like the best part of my day is checking on to see how everyone else, how all my digital friends are doing for the day, and it's the best part of my day. So, but yeah, I thought that was interesting about you. But Adrian, I think that's kind of a good place to land the plane. But I want to say like a huge thank you for just chatting today. Like I said, I've listened to a lot of your content. I've been following you for a while. And if it's any sense of feedback, like you'll meet a lot of people, and I'm sure you have, where you follow them on LinkedIn and you talk to them in person. And it's a disconnect between what your impression was and what it actually was. And I can say for you, it's very authentic and spot on. So
Mm.
also I see nothing but up and to the right for you and everything that you're building. I recommend everyone go check out the newsletter and get in touch with you. But where can people kind of go to more and more about you? They want to pick your brain and see all the cool stuff you got going on.
They can find me on my website. It's adrianatica.com. And from there, you'll find the portal to the newsletter. You can also find me on social
Uh,
media. I'm fairly easy to find online these days.